Okay, hello everyone. This is Sebastian Marquet, Crouch to Cellar. I'm very pleased and excited to introduce you to Sebastian Traviesa and Jérôme Barret for the #2 sparkling webinar, or bubbly now we should call it. So thank you everybody. We do not have a lot of participants, but however, we will be recording this bubbly now, and this bubbly now will be stored on Crouch to Cellar website. Where all the other webinars are stored. So everybody will share a link after that on the next email campaign. So thank you, Sebastian, to be here with us today. It's very exciting to not only talk about wine, but also to talk about Vineyard. And so the first question, like I like to do, is introduce yourself.
Good, thank you, Seba. So good morning for everybody. My name is Sebastian. I work with Sandridge Nurseries located in Bakersfield, California. I am from Chile. That's where I went to the university, Universidad Católica de Valparaíso. That's where I did my studies of agronomist.
So the second question, Sebastian, is where are you right now? I like with this COVID-19 crazy time is to give, just a quick idea of where you are located and where you are. Are you home? Are you in the vineyards? Or can you describe your surrounding?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the last months, like most of us, have been working from home and visiting some vineyards. I am based in Vacaville, California. That's in the North Coast, pretty close to Napa and Lodi as well. In less than a week, I am migrating with my family to Hood River. That's located in the north of Oregon, in the Gorge area. So that would be very convenient for me because the largest areas where I visit vineyards and I represent for Sandridge are Okanagan Valley in Canada, Washington, and Oregon as well.
Great. So you are bubbling pretty soon in Oregon, near us, near me. That would be fun to have you here.
Yeah, there's
quite
a few people from California migrating to Oregon. That's true.
You, Jérôme, introduce yourself as well, and then and tell us where you are bubbling today.
Good morning. Good morning for you. Good evening for me. Jérôme Barret. I'm a consultant winemaker in sparkling wine business, and I am having different missions all over the world. And the main time before the COVID I was spending was in America, in California and Washington State and New Mexico. I also have some different contracts all over the world. And now I am in UK. I'm in Sussex, south of London, where I'm just visiting a few vineyards from a client, to prepare the coming harvest and in order to check this year planting. So we have checked our little babies coming from nurseries, European nurseries. And I'm very happy to be with you tonight.
Thank you. Okay, so we are concentrating on vineyard today. And, first question is, Sebastian, other than the traditional sparkling areas, what exotic places do you see the upcoming bubbles, and what is the reason for that?
Sure, Seba, maybe the first thing I have to ask you, it's you have to allow me to share the screen. I have a quick presentation that would be nice to give you better ideas.
Okay, I put you as a host, that way you will be able to.
Perfect, excellent. So, give me a quick second here. There you go. Can you see that now? Perfect.
Yes.
There you go. So, in order to answer I will separate your question in two, Seba. Yes. We have new areas in Northern America. We see several areas where they start producing sparkling. I will use the example of this beautiful bottle you can see in the right, called espuma de piedra, foam of the rock, that is produced in Valle de Guadalupe in Mexico. That's about 2 hours south of San Diego. That's where 90% of the Mexican wine is produced. So the example number 2, it's the Pet Nat, or Pétillant Naturel. There is development of wineries making Pet Nat all over the place, from Oregon, California, East Coast, with some hybrids. Very, very interesting to see what's happening with the Pet Nat. It's still a little bit underground. You find the Pet Nat in very specialized stores, but it's very fun, it's young, it's cheap, and it's certainly bringing people into the wine world. And the third example of new areas is the diversity we see in the wine competitions. According to wine enthusiasts, on some of the recent tournaments for sparkling wines, there's some of the winners are from California, from Willamette Valley in Oregon, from New York, from Michigan. So a little bit everywhere we can see wineries starting into the bubbles.
Texas as well.
Yeah.
Jérôme, do you have anything to add on Pet Nat? You know, we hear about Pet Nat a lot lately, and it seems to be upcoming and not upcoming. But
Pet Nat is actually an accident product, or a product for lazy producers. So for the tradition and the people who are doing traditional method, Pet Nat is cutting the method in the middle. So it's leaving the wine with its yeasts inside the bottle and not making the riddling and not making the disgorging, to provide to the client a very clear sparkling wine in which we add liquor, and the liquor is a finishing of the sparkling wines. The Pet Nat, not at all. It's very natural fermentation, sometimes total, because most of the producers just mix sugar and yeast and then put that in a bottle. The quantity of sugar might be too much, so the bottle can explode, or not enough, or the fermentation can be still not entire. So it's kind of a trend coming, but it's also very, very, very difficult to maintain the consistency of the quality. So interesting trend, but for the guy who appreciate really the finished products from the sparkling wines, it's kind of frustration, especially for me.
Yeah. So, Sebastian, to come back to the vineyard, the industry, like you say, we see sparkling production and vineyards planting everywhere. What is the role of a nursery on all that?
So let me make one more comment about the expansion, about these new areas. I did a last-minute slide based on sales and projections of planting. So we see this big expansion on new areas and on the size of the programs, but now we have COVID. And so I took a slideshot on what's happening in Champagne. So with the COVID, the weddings, they canceled, the restaurants, they closed, and they, just this year, they're reporting 1.7 billion of losses in sales. So that's in May, their sales were down by 70%.
Yeah, totally.
So I hear they're having a meeting in a few days, in August the 18th, and they're going to decide if they should destroy the excess grapes or use them to make hand sanitizer, which is highly controversial. So that's in Champagne. This morning I talked with one of the bigger houses here in California to see where their sales are, and they confirm their numbers are in the red. Not as bad as Champagne, but they are on the red. So this expansion we have seen during the last 3 years, certainly is going to slow down.
Sadly.
That was my last comment about this question for new areas and expansion.
Yeah, globally the consumption of bubbles is going down due to the close of the restaurant and no venues, no celebration, no weddings, so the sparkling wine is mostly a party product, and that's why the consumption looks down. And it's true that in Champagne the harvest will be probably half of what it is usually. So they will leave grapes on the vineyards. Now they will decide what they do with these grapes leaving on the vineyard. Usually they put the grapes down, but I'm pretty sure there will be no use of the grapes for another type of product, and especially hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Well, financially, I cannot imagine them to harvest and and to do hand sanitizer. So
no, the question is more to say that we will collect it, ferment it, and distill it.
Yeah.
And so the distillation will go on industry and not specifically on the something designated as an help for protecting people from the COVID. But globally the grapes will be destroyed by distillation, and it will go to an industrial process, or it will go back to the land.
Yeah. So what is the industry role, Sebastian, on the nursery for the sparkling production?
Good. So we at the nursery in Sandwich, we propagate the rootstocks, the varieties, the clones for all these wineries for either still wine or sparkling wine production. In some cases, we would like to have some material that unfortunately is not available in the US. So I will use that as an example for this slide. We work with a winery in Okanagan Valley in Canada called Arterra, and many of their viticulturists and winemakers, they are from Australia, so they are familiar with this selection of Pinot Noir called MB6. It's a selection of Pinot Noir that thrives with really hot weather. So they contacted the nursery and they asked us to propagate vines for that particular clone of Pinot Noir. So we talked with our colleagues back in Australia. We brought that material to Foundation Plant Services, located in Davis, California. And they are going to do virus removal certification, and they release the material, the propagation material to the nursery. They do an outstanding job in this quarantine station. So we're hoping to have the material in a year, and from there we can propagate vines for our clients in Canada. So these type of situations could be, the material could be proprietary just for Arterra, or it could be open to the public. So that's a way to import materials for different uses in the industry.
So next question, thank you. What about rootstock? Rootstock for bubbles, we hear, you know.
Sure, that's a really wide question. At Sandwich, we work with 27 different rootstocks, and we are adding 1 or 2 rootstocks every year. So that's completely opposite to what we see in Europe, where the rootstock selections, they're pretty static. They have not been adding many rootstocks on the last years, and the regulations, they're pretty strict on what rootstocks you can use on each area. So I am just going to focus on 2 rootstocks here, the favorite in Italy and the favorite in the US. So one of the favorites in Italy is called Cover, or 5BB. You can see here the leaf is very Riparia looking leaf. This rootstock is a cross between Berlandieri and Riparia. On the bottom table, you can see where the interest for this rootstock is coming from. Low potassium intake and high vigor. That means good yields for sparkling, which is a desirable trait. If we compare it with this rootstock with SO4, which is another very common rootstock, the drought tolerance, it's low, which is not a concern in Italy because they have rains through the summer. In California, we don't have, or in the West Coast in general, we don't have rains through the summer. So we like rootstocks with better drought resistance. SO4 is not considered fully drought resistant, but it's better than 5BB. Favorite rootstock in the US, 1103 Paulsen, especially in the Carneros area, maybe too vigorous for Oregon. We have some trials going on. It produces good vigor, good yields. You can see the leaf of Paulsen. It's quite different from Kober. It's wider, shorter, and the petiolate sinus is very funny, very open too. So I created this slide trying to answer a previous discussion with Jérôme. He said, Sebastian, what happens with 41B and Fercal? Should we use those in the US? And honestly, it's we cannot apply the model of copy and paste in vineyards. That's super, super important. Not because you saw a vineyard in Champagne with 41B or Fercal in Champagne that is thriving and producing good quality, that means you can do that in your terroir and with your objectives of production. That's why you have to talk with consultants, extension service from the university, nurserymen to find the right rootstock for your site. In Oregon, there's a very particular situation. We have very, very small diversity in rootstocks. And that's why we're going to plant a rootstock trial in 2020 with 17 rootstocks, and we're going to evaluate them for grape quality, phenology, and drought tolerance. We're going to plant this in Domaine Drouin, and Sandwich Nurseries is going to propagate the vines. Result Partners, they are the vineyard management company for this project, and the vineyard design, it has been done by Oregon State University, and they are going to collect the data as well. So very exciting what we see happening with the rootstocks.
So did you start the project already? Did you plant the vines on the ground, or you did not yet?
Vines are going in the ground in the spring of 2021. Sorry, I did a mistake on the slide here. Okay. So in a few months, we're going to graft them at the nursery. Everything is going to be Pinot Noir French 777. So we can really evaluate the difference of the rootstock on the vine performance.
What can I say? It's always a temptation when you start a project for sparkling wine to search from the terroir and for the soil's characteristic of Champagne, because people say, oh, in Champagne they have good results, they do good wines. So let's try to find a chalky place. And often it's kind of terroir which is rare or which is not really homogeneous in a plot that you need to plant. So you have some parts which are really rich in chalk, and some others which are far less. So yeah, when you started with a project, the analysis and the all checks you can do on the soil is very important. And often on some projects, we cut the plots of vine in different areas. And in these areas, we plant different type of rootstock due to the change of terroir all along the plots of vine. And this is the advice, is always having the perfect soil analysis complete and make sure that your characteristic of your soil is the same everywhere, and then select the right rootstock and also select the rootstock in consideration of productivity, which is very important.
Okay. So Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, Sebastian, clones for traditional bubbles. You have something to say about this classic Pinot Noir and Chardonnay clone varietal? Sorry.
Sure, and a little bit more, Seba.
Okay, sorry.
So for Pinot, for a sparkling production, we have the three main varieties: Pinot, Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier, and others. So let's start with the Pinot. What we see there. So we see all the Dijon clones used for sparkling by default. I make a big note there, and we will see why. The Christina clone brought into the US by Domaine Chandon on the 96. It's a consensus on wineries. This is one of the best clones for sparkling on Pinot Noir. Mariafeld, it's a desired clone because of the high yields. French 386, it's considered a distinctive clone in Champagne, available in the US as well. And then the Pinot Droit, what we call California A28. It's a family, it's part of the Pinot Noir family, quite different, and we'll see why in the next slide. In Chardonnay, we use the Dijon clones, same as Pinot Noir. They are used by default. Robert Young, it's a consensus among wineries because of high yields and really high acidity. And then the old Clone 4, or we call it workhorse for Chardonnay. The California industry of Chardonnay is based on Clone 4, and we propagate thousands of vines at the nursery every year because of the high yields. With Pinot Meunier, there is a hate and love type of relation among wineries, and the availability is very, very low of Pinot Meunier. There's very few vineyards. I would like Jérôme here to make some comments of Pinot Meunier. He has a love relation with this variety. Go ahead, Jérôme.
The Pinot Meunier is the third grape of Champagne area. So it's a little bit the little black duck on the prestigious Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And nobody knows the capacity of Pinot Meunier to produce still wine as well. The temptation when you plant and you take a risk of planting vineyards, you always think about what's going to happen if you don't succeed with your sparkling wine. Could I switch my production to a still wine? And actually, the love and hate relationship is based on the lack of knowledge about what could bring the Pinot as a still wine. It brings excellent still red wines with a very Burgundy style in Champagne sometimes, but it will never be a Burgundy, totally Burgundy style. So that's right, that Pinot Meunier stay as a 100% sparkling kind of grape. But all over the project I'm working, and especially as well in California, the Pinot Meunier have a great capacity to produce excellent based wine with a great elegancy. And sometimes the fact that you are selecting Pinot Meunier, you have better Pinot Meunier based wine than Pinot Noir coming from grape varietal or clones, which are a bit of mix for the still and for the sparkling. So if you're really investing in the Pinot Meunier for a sparkling program, you will have success. It's an excellent grape for that. And the cycle of Pinot Meunier is shorter. So you might get earlier maturity, and especially on the warm area, you might get earlier maturity to get fresher and fruitier style of base wine. Example in the UK, it's not a very warm area, but actually the fact that the Pinot Meunier has a shorter cycle we get better maturity at the same moment of the other grapes, and it's really bringing very interesting based wine. So Pinot Meunier is a risk, first of all, and is a risk because you can't really do what you want with the still wine if you have to do it. It's simple. There is few examples in the South African that people are doing still wine with a Pinot Meunier and clear white still wines with the Pinot Meunier in the blend. And it's really interesting and gives really interesting results.
Good. So in regards to other varieties, less orthodox varieties for sparkling, we see this Barbera used in Mexico. They really like it because of the high acidity. In Italy, Nero d'Avola and Prosecco. Nero d'Avola is a very interesting variety because the sugar levels, they stay low, even with really hot weather. Burger and Colombard used in the Central Valley of California due to the high yields and high acidity. And then for pet nuts in the Paso Robles area, we see Cabernet Franc and Chenin used for that. Now I'll focus a little bit on the Pinot Noir family. We have several groups on the Pinot Noir family. And the first of them is the Pinot Noir très fin, which is very small leaves with deep sinuses. The diversity on this group is almost extinct due to the phylloxera crisis. They yield really low tonnage, about 2 tons per acre or less. Some people would not consider them commercial, and that's part of the extinction as well. And they're not available in the US. The Burgundy wineries that are using these selections of Pinot très fin, they are very jealous and they don't share. The next one is the Pinot fin. You can see the leaves, they're slightly bigger. They're a little bit more productive. We have a couple of selections in the US, the Calera, the NTAB 943, and probably some wineries are using some sweet case selections that they don't share with the rest of the industry. Those are non-certified selections. Then we have the group of the Pinot Moyen, Fin Moyen. They yield a little bit more, 2 to 4 tons per acre, 5 to 6 tons per acre max. And then we see most of the Dijon clones that we're very familiar with, 115, 667, 777, and the 828. And then the next one is the Pinot Gros. You can see here the leaves are much bigger. They're almost full. They don't have very deep sinuses. And all of them, they yield more than 4 tons per acre. Selections here, Christina, NTAV 459, and the Mariafeld. The last group we have at the right is the Pinot Droit. The growth of this type of Pinot is very different than the others. The growth is upright. So they yield more than 4 tons per acre. And the example for this one is the AS1, or we call it California 828. So the question here is where we should position ourselves to do sparkling. And that's the answer. We should use Pinot Moyen, ideally Pinot Gros or Pinot Droit, because we want the yields. We don't want small clusters that are really exposed. We need the yields for sparkling. Jérôme, would you like to make some comment on this one?
No, the Pinot Noir is very interesting for all the mechanization for the plant and the surface of the leaves, and also for mechanical harvest. So most of the new projects, people are orienting their choice to the Pinot Noir, which give an average production in terms of quantity, and which give a guarantee of success for mechanization in the vineyard.
So quantity, let's talk about quantity. We know that in Champagne, they produce up to 7 to 10 ton nectar Here in the US, many winemakers with who I talk seems to be afraid of high production for sparkling. And what do you think, Jérôme, about that?
From what we have seen all over the world, it is not the smallest crop or quantity which gives the best sparkling-based wines. Globally, you can push the vineyards to give a bit more with the sparkling wines. 10 tons per hectare is 5 tons per acre globally, but we can do much more. We can do the double in Champagne. We can do the double in others area. And what is important, and you can really invest on productive vineyards and make your vineyards really productive and having still great base wine, because the second limitation on the technology is to press and to respect a pressing program, which you extract far less. And actually you are doing your sparkling base wine with your cuvée, which is a reduction finally of the quantities that you can produce on the vineyards. So for me, till a certain types of limit, you don't have a problem to produce 5 tons per acre, 7 tons per acre without any problem. And for a good quality.
Yeah. One last comment on that, Jérôme. Some growers, some new growers into the sparkling world, they have some concerns about higher yields, because that could be in the still wine, that could be detrimental for winter hardiness of the vines. But it's important to notice in the sparkling, we're harvesting so early that the vines, they do have the time to create reserves for the winter because of the differential on the timing for harvest. So yeah, keep that in mind.
It can be 1 month, 1.5 months more with the leaves, with the sugar accumulation for the wood for the winter. So actually, it's not a problem at all, even on the less sunny areas.
Okay, so production, not a problem. We can push the vine. That changed completely the math in terms of return on your investment. You know, for sure, if you can do like 12 or 15 ton an acre, or 7 ton or 9 ton or 10 ton an acre, is definitively a big difference between 3 or 4 for a still wine. So it's that changed the math. How to plant? This is to adapt vineyard for bubbles. What is the major difference in the vineyard between the still wine and the sparkling, Sebastian?
So we have 2 cases here: to plant or to adapt, right? So everybody would like to plant, but that's not the reality. Just we see that on well-established and older wineries like Domaine Chandon, Schramsberg, Domaine Carneros. They plant for sparkling. What is the reality for the majority of the producers? They adapt the vineyards. The vineyards are ready. Some of them, they are not producing the quality they need for still wine, and they use them for sparkling. So what are the main farming differences for these vineyards? They do less leaf pulling, no cluster thinning in order to increase the yields, a little bit more water and fertilizer. Hedging is not considered a problem. You want the vigor there. And some of the producers, they like the idea of adding cross arms and wires to open the canopy. That may be a problem for some of the harvesters, that you need to keep your costs down. But it's a way to protect your fruit from sunburn, which is critical for sparkling production. So I think that answers most of the question, unless you guys have any comment there.
Jérôme?
I'm okay. No, I'm okay. You know, the choice is always complicated to get when you are only a sparkling wine producers and when you plant. But obviously, the economical decision is driving most of the decision taken in the vineyard. Productivities, and then the canopy systems, the weather resistance to the warmness or to the cold, because there is not only warm areas in the world, there is cold as well. and the agronomy and the digital material can reply, I think, to the question that people are asking, whether they want to have a program or a project for the warm or for the cold.
So could you give me a second? I would like to correlate this one with the previous slide. So when you adapt, what is the problem when you adapt? So it goes back to the genetics you have in the vineyard. So let's say you planted a vineyard of Pinot Noir, and you have the most common we see in the US is this group of clones, 115, 667, 777, and 828. So you adapt those, and your top tonnage would be 5 to 6 tons per acre. That's your cap. Mm-hmm. If you plant a vineyard for sparkling and you use the right clones for that, with Christina 459 or Mariafeld, you can increase your yield to 7 or 8 tons per acre, no problem, because how fruitful those selections they are and the size of the cluster. So by adapting, you are losing tons, but from the get-go, it's cheaper because you have your vineyard from the day one producing for sparkling. So that's the big difference. Good.
Okay, interesting. It's good, good info. So winery, you look to plant some sparkling grapes or vineyard to produce sparkling, and on the location of frost is a question also I got sometimes, you know, how to handle the frost in sparkling production or any other production.
So I did a small survey between sparkling growers, and frost is not different than still wine producers, about the same. So these are the 3 most common methods to handle, not really to handle, but is to prevent the frost, right? So we have the fans, we have these sprinklers. It could be sprinklers or floppers. The floppers, they are way better in case you have limited water, because they keep just the vines or the canopy wet. And this third system called kicker canes that we use in some areas like Okanagan, and I have seen some in Oregon as well. Jérôme, he made a comment about, what about the genetics? There's some work that would help us in regards to the frost, and the answer is absolutely. So I will use 4 examples here in terms of breeding that are quite successful, not specifically associated with frost, but they show us that the breeders, they are working on that direction. So University of Minnesota, they released some hybrids many years ago that yield a full crop after temperatures of -30 Fahrenheit. So those hybrids are planted in Vermont, for example, or very, very cold places, and they are producing decent wines. The University of Davis, a few months ago, they put in the market some hybrids that are fully resistant to Pierre's disease. Then the Entav-Inra group from France, they released 4 hybrids that are resistant to powdery and downy mildew. They have 2 genes of resistance for that. These are available in Europe. They should be available in the US in 1 to 2 years. And we're very excited about those. We tried the wines recently and they're okay. It doesn't taste like the old hybrids. And the 4th example, it's in the table grape world, the group called IFG, International Fruit Genetics. They released a variety called Cotton Candy. And I would consider that one the first seedless grape that doesn't taste like green apples. It's a very flavor oriented type of breeding. So the answer may be in the breeding, absolutely.
So we talked about that. Sometime we really want to do like a traditional champagne or sparkling method with Chardonnay or Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier, but the limit of the properties and the frost, line can be a problem. So we see that on the East Coast a lot. Many wineries should focus with some hybrids or Cheval Blanc, for example, with the beautiful grapes, produce high quantity of ton per acre, who can be a fun product, a fun grapes to work with for sparkling production. And we know some example of successful people who have done that. So it's not always a smart thing to want to be only working with traditional grapes for sparkling, but be creative. It's also sometimes an advantage for the wineries with a hip new product and different approach as well. So.
Yeah, so I would love to make a comment there on the non-traditional varieties to make bubbles. Winery that I'm very proud of the work they are doing. It's Old Westminster in Maryland. They are working with all the American hybrids to do sparkling wine. And so that means sparkling or vineyards with less spray that are better adapted to the area and that allow for pretty good quality wines. So very excited for that project.
Jérôme, what do you think, Monsieur Champenois?
I think that first of all is you need to adapt your local situation. You need to adapt the vegetal material to the local situation, to some of the possible market, to have the grapes. I'm always positive for respecting the grapes from the country or from the origin of the area I'm making a sparkling program. I always told my clients, why not having a local grape for your sparkling program, or the choice of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir will be a second choice. Search something which is working already in your area. Then all the new material that the nurseries will bring will help the most difficult areas to produce sparkling wine especially. So I'm thinking about UK now, but I'm thinking about East Coast, all around the Finger Lakes, which are very old producer of sparkling wines. And I think they can become really interesting players and actors in the industry by getting little by little this new kind of hybrids or naturally resistant new varietals. Okay. The second problem is the cryptogamic. The cryptogamic is the second key thing. Not only the frost, but the resistance to the powdery mildew, to the botrytis is a key. You can't produce a good sparkling wine with a botrytis or with a powdery mildew. But this is the same thing for all the winemaking.
So about the vineyard, Sebastian, we heard also another question is like can versus spur. What is the most adapted pruning technique for the sparkling production?
Yeah, there's not one answer on that, Seba. The clean pruning is a great system, or the Guyot. What's the advantage of the Guyot? The yields are very consistent over time. On the younger vineyards, the viticulturists, they would prefer the Guyot to prevent trunk diseases. So clean pruning, Guyot, it's great. Now, what are the beauties of the spur pruning or cordon de roya? On the spur, you have a really good fruit distribution. You can see a picture here, and if you just imagine where the shoots are coming, it's pretty clear that the fruit is naturally very well distributed on that plant. Allows for, this is a comment super interesting from one of our clients in the Carneros area. They really like the cordon, even with younger vineyards, because it allows them for better uniformity on the block. This is a really large producer, and that's their number one concern. They want all the block to be very uniform. That's black and white when we compare with still wine production, where we want a little bit of overripe and a little bit of green fruit just to create more wine complexity. Here we want everything to be equal. And another advantage of the spur pruning, it's how easy it is to make the spur pruning. You can send some kids to the vineyard to do the cordon pruning and it would work. So in younger appellations where you don't have a lot of skilled viticulturists or workers, spur pruning is a very good option, and it helps to keep the costs down too. So those are the two possibilities we have.
Okay. What do we see in Champagne, Jérôme?
Cordon mostly, and another pruning which is called the Chablis, which is a long cut on a long wood with three candles, which is not really presented there, but it's very Champagne typical. But the Champagne vineyards are very low, and the density of plantation is 10,000 feet per hectare, which is 20,000 feet per acre globally, or 19, something like this. So it's a high density of plantation as well, low, and no mechanization for the harvest. This is, for me, very important, that the pruning and the system and your whole canopy system is respecting what you want to do with your picking of the harvest. The picking of the grape is becoming a key problem, and all the agronomy can help on that. The main complexity will be to pick black grape and keep having a white juice. So the machine needs to have an evolution for picking the black grape and maybe on more entire clusters. But the machine, the equipment producers are working on that as well, because there is an ask from the sparkling producers to pick more entire berries or grapes. And this is very important because globally, from all over the world, most of the half can come from black skin grape.
Good. Sarah, one more comment in regards to the spur pruning. It's most of the mechanization we see right now available for vineyards is for spur pruning. So we have a lot of tools nowadays that help to keep the costs down, and they are meant for spur pruning. So pre-pruners, and there's machines to this Chima machine from New Zealand to remove the canes from the right after pruning, that allows you to keep the cost down, and those, they work way better with spur pruning. So there's a cost factor that promotes the spur pruning. I like the picture here. If you guys notice, there is a spur at the base of the vine that could help for retraining the cordon. I don't see that happening in the West Coast very often, retraining trunks, and that's the biggest inconvenience on spur pruning. We keep the cordons for way too long, but if you can retrain your cordon every 2 or 3 years, the vine will age way better on the spur pruning, which is usually the #1 problem. Yeah. You have cordons that are too old with big horns on it.
Okay, great information. So what is the next question? So I want to ask everyone as well, if you have questions, you can submit them to me and I will be happy to ask, the answers to Sebastian and Jérôme. So feel free to send me questions if you have any. Also, you can always reach to me and I will be happy to reach directly to Sebastian and Jérôme to ask questions if you have any. Jérôme, I know you will be coming at one point in the US. I'm not sure when it will be, but I know you are working on it. It's kind of a bummer because you're supposed to be here a long time ago and everything has been delayed. Nothing we can do about it. We have to be patient, but it will be fantastic for you to come at one point, and we'll be visiting wineries and everyone who has sparkling program, we will be happy to offer your service to these people. So last question.
We'll be happy to come.
Sebastian, what is the common struggle for bubble producer?
Yeah, that's very site. That question is very site specific, Seba. So I talk with growers in different regions, asking for their constraint to produce sparkling, and so in the Carneros area, for example, leaf roll and the vector vine millibag, that's their #1 difficulty. The second one, it's more widespread, and is the powdery mildew. I like this sentence here, Chardonnay greatest weakness. It's very, very sensitive to powdery mildew. So you have to be really on top of your Chardonnay grapes. Get a really good sprayer. Otherwise, don't try to produce Chardonnay. This one, the third one, it's consensus as well. Global, and it's a mix of three: global warming, hotter weather, shorter window for harvest, how to retain acidity. That's becoming an increased problem on the different regions to produce sparkling. And the third one, it's a more site specific. It's coming from a producer in the Paso Robles area. It's very difficult for them to find the labor to do the méthode champenoise or the crémant. That's pretty skilled people that you need to make that system. I think, Jérôme, you have some comments there. I saw you raising your hands.
Yeah, the main problem is we are in the season much sooner than the others. So sometimes it's the struggle is always to start an harvest with something, stop the harvest, and go ahead after with the still wines and the white and the red. So the main problem is how you can get all the labor, the good labor at the right time, at the right moment. And yes, finding labor for very technical things, for any kind of method, is complicated, really complicated, and more complicated. That's where the nursery work on the vegetal material is very important. That's where the equipment suppliers work and research for the picking of the grape, but not only, for the maintenance, the pruning, the canopy systems and everything. The equipment there is still a lot to do in that. I think we are not enough modern in that. The new robots coming for working in the vineyards, because you need to know what to do when you make a pruning. and it's important, and it's hard work. Nobody wants to do this hard work. It's easier to collect some other vegetables that's growing well in California, for example. Globally, yeah, the challenge is getting harder and harder because the labor is complicated to find.
Okay, guys, any additional comments, Sebastian, on the sparkling world?
We have a question from Bruno. And he's asking, are you looking at a different maturity to pick up Chardonnay and Pinot, which is a very good question. Sebastian, if you want to reply, I have my reply, but if you want to start, because
no, please go ahead. I'm considered a nurseryman.
Globally, you bring the fruits on the table. Bruno, you know, globally the maturity, yeah, we look at the same maturity, but we are not looking at the over maturity. And I hope it will reply to your question. What we need to always have is to not be over a certain alcohol level or sugar level, but to keep the acidity. And so we are, yes, looking at same maturity on Chard and Pinot, and we also are looking not on an over maturity, and specifically on the Pinot, where we are more tempted to leave the Pinot mature a bit longer. So globally, we need to have the 17 bricks, 18 bricks, and we really need to go to this kind of level of maturity, 90 bricks maximum, not go over. So the Chardonnay has the typicity. The Chardonnay can accumulate the sugar very quickly before the maturation, when the Pinot Noir is a bit longer. So we search for the same maturity with more attention on the Chardonnay, which can be matured faster. So always it is a key of organization due to the harvest to look at this maturity and the point that the Chardonnay can accelerate its maturity at the last moment. That's it for me.
Okay. Bruno, I hope you got an answer to your question. And anything else, Sebastian, you want to bring to a conversation? You are located now in the Gorge or soon in the Gorge, so you come often in Oregon. So if somebody want to reach to you, how they do that? They go on the Sunridge website, or how that work? Absolutely,
yeah. They can go to the Sunridge website, and I would be happy to give you guys a visit. Where I am right now, I'm about to jump in the truck and move the family to Oregon in the next few days. So I'm still in California, in Vacaville, but I'm about to move. More than half of our house is packed and ready to go. So we're very excited about that move. That's a fun area.
Good, we'll be closer. Jérôme, if anyone want to use your service or get some answer to their question, how they can reach to you?
Through you, I think just email Sebastian, and Sebastian will transfer. Globally, we are very, I know it's complicated to have very specific question during a webinar or when people are all online, but if you have question or specific question after for a face-to-face or a call, it's really possible. No problem at all. It will be a pleasure. So contact Sebastian, and Sebastian will forward.
Okay, so we are going to do another sparkling webinar, more focus on the production, date of harvest, transportation of grapes, and pressing. So that will be the next webinar. We do not have a date, but we have to do it quickly before harvest because coming soon. So I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it would be great if we can organize that, Jérôme. We already kind of worked on it, but it would be wonderful if we can do that. So thank you guys for being with Crush to Cellar today. Thank you for all the attendees for participating to the webinar. If you do not have your winemaking product for Harvest 2020, know that Crush to Cellar is here for you. It's a one-stop stop for all your winery needs. So you can go on the website and order all your product. We carry all the major brand of yeast and nutrients and anything else. Just to remind you as well, then we have ETS in the same building. Then you're also welcome to drop your samples, or we even do like free delivery and free carrier service. So we can come pick up your sample or deliver what you did directly at your door. So it's pretty practical during harvest specifically. So thank you everybody for being with us today, and stay posted. We will have a new webinar coming soon about sparkling production, determination of date of harvest. And that is will be a very interesting one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Time for a Guinness for me. Yeah, we still there is still not a big distribution of sparkling in England.
Sebastian, I will ask you to Sebastian, I will ask you to stop re-recording. You have a little button you can stop recording.
Perfect. There you go.
Because you are the host now.
Yep.
Ciao, guys.